Well, hello guys, and happy end of August. An end of this August will be a welcome thing indeed. I'm sure you're much the same, but it's been in the triple digits for 2 to 3 weeks straight. Just getting a little tired of the flop sweat, working in the hot houses and so forth. People that find summer their favorite season. I think the majority of them probably work inside in air conditioning, throughout the summer. And they see morning and evening, and that's about it. I could be wrong, but I just know, speaking personally, fall is my favorite. Summer must be, I figure summer must be my least favorite because I look forward to fall more than I do spring. I always thought spring and fall, they're kind of head and head. But man, after the dog days of summer, as my grandpa used to call them, there's nothing I look forward to more than things cooling down. So I think with spring, the heat's coming. It's right around the corner, at least in my mind. But I enjoy them both. How have you been? Along with all of that, not much has gotten done in here. We are in the busiest season here at work, getting ready for fall planting. So I have got the little Corvair engine mostly put back together. It's just about ready to go back in the car, but I'm going to hold off on that. That will be the next video, I believe, is putting it back together. But before I do that, I want to go through the rear suspension, and I'll do that with you guys. So, reassembly of the engine, rear suspension, then hopefully putting the engine back in. And then we'll go through probably floor pans, probably get it, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure what to do with the flooring yet, the vinyl flooring. All I can find on vinyl flooring is eBay. I haven't called Clark's. Their website is a little difficult to navigate. I need to look in their printed catalog to see if I can find something. But I have not found the black molded vinyl flooring for it, other than some random place on eBay that says they have it. So I could do black carpet. It would be a little quieter, a little more comfortable. It would look somewhat similar, obviously. I don't know. What do you guys think? What would you do? Would you put the rubber mat back in it? Not sure. Let me know. As far as anything else going on, I'm just putting bits and pieces back on the 71 Chevy at home. And that's where I am. Just trying to get little bits done here and there as I have time, which is all I can do. Now I feel like... Sorry, let me get rid of this gum. I was going to get rid of that earlier. Oh, this... every time I walk by or am working over here, I notice this little 307 out of 36 Chevy. I got that from a guy down at South Coffeyville, Oklahoma. That was all in a video, and I have big plans for this little engine. It should run, but getting to the project, that's going to be the difficult part. It'll have to wait like everything else. The video where I unpacked the shipment from Clark's Corvairs. I have a real problem of mixing my sentences up, and especially when I'm distracted. I don't know if I ever really did a good job of portraying my point of what I was trying to say while I was unboxing that package. I got a lot of good replies from you guys after that, so you must have kind of understood where I was coming from. But for some reason, I just feel the need to reiterate what I was trying to talk about. Nobody can work on one of these projects without money. And the guy's point was, He's lamenting over the fact that he cannot find a show or a channel where it's just a po' boy, basically, working on cars and doing it without resources. Which I really question, should you be working on cars if you were that bad off? You know, you have much bigger priorities than antique cars. But be that as it may, if you were given an antique car, if it was free, if it was handed down to you, you want to get it running, and it's been sitting for decades, at the very least, you're going to spend $1,000, $1,500 on parts and supplies, and if you have no tools, you're going to need those. You know, think of like Roadkill or Vice Grip Garage when they go to a salvage yard and they're going to drive this car out of here. Well, that's not really reality. Or when Derek, you know, I don't know why the guy buys cars in upper Midwest or the road salt belt, you know, because they're going to be rotten. And he keeps getting bit by that bug, you know. Be that as it may, that's his choice. And I love the work he does, or what he produces. But even if you have, you know, none of that's real. I mean, it is real, but at the very least, you're going to be putting in a couple $1,000s into that car to be able to drive it. If it's been sitting for decades, you know, you're going to have tires. You're going to have oils and a battery and whatever else. Brakes are obviously a huge problem that Vice Grip runs into all the time. You're going to have to do something about that in order to actually use the vehicle. And let's use him as an example. If you've ever seen his very earliest videos, it was him in his home garage with kind of a poor quality phone camera, just showing the work he was doing on his rusted out Camaro. What was the first thing he did when guys responded to liking his videos? He gained popularity. He started getting paid, getting a financial return for that work. What was the first thing he did? He started upgrading facilities, buying more projects, investing in tools, and obviously, as you get more projects, you need more car parts. You turn around and you reinvest so that you can do what you're doing better, right? That's the natural human thing to do. Now, a guy could keep working under a tree forever, then there's nothing wrong with that. But if you start making money at something, you're gonna turn around and reinvest it. Otherwise, it's kind of an inhuman response to not. You understand? And I don't know, I'm just prattling on about it now, but I understand where, like I said, I understand where the comment came from, and he wants real guys working on real projects without a lot of money behind it. And that's you and that's me, basically. I do get a little bit of a return from, you know, I don't do sponsors so far. I have been approached for one, but it didn't really fit at all with what I'm doing here. So I kind of walked away from that deal, which I was surprised they wanted me anyway, not having even 10,000 subscribers. But the money that I do get from YouTube, it's basically goes nowhere. I have to save, basically I withhold 40%. 30 for taxes, 10 to God, and the other 60%, you know, I'm lucky if I get $200-300 a month out of it, and believe me, that goes a long ways towards helping, paying for parts, but that's about the end of it. So like I said on the last video, these projects that I do with you for other people, that's why I do them. I can pay for parts. And this is no different than any of you. And I don't know. Either way, it's just kind of a baffling comment, and it's good for philosophy. And I need to get a paper towel to wipe my face off, because it is... Oh, man. We're getting a little warm in here. And then just yesterday, it's kind of funny because I'm talking to you so much here. Just yesterday I got a comment on the same video, I think there's a fly on my brain, the same Suburban tank in my 86 GMC video. Someone left a comment simply stating, "You talk too much." Could there not be yet another more ironic statement about my personality? I was the kid, always in the background, not being a part of the conversation. When I was working around adults, which I did more often than spending time with kids, because I was always at my grandpa's shop with my dad or grandpa or whatever working, and oftentimes an adult would ask, they would ask a question about a previous conversation, or if we were in the shop and they didn't know where they laid a tool. More times than not, I knew I could give them an answer because I was standing back and observing. That's the kind of person I was then and still am for the most part. You don't know how hard it is to do this with you guys. So it was really kind of funny that I got that comment that I talk too much. Because if I met you in person, and some of you could have met me in person, I don't just prattle on. I'm like probably most of you guys. So that was funny, and I was naughty. I couldn't resist. I replied, and you have a tendency to be rude, but I love you anyway. I should probably ask for forgiveness for that, but I did it. I'm sorry. Sometimes I just get a wild streak, and I just have to reach back out and oh well. Well, guys, unfortunately, there's just not a whole lot I have to share with you this month. One of you regulars, hi Randall, left the comment, something about enjoying the other stuff I do, metal detecting and so forth. And yeah, there again, just it's too hot. The ground's too hard to be doing that kind of stuff right now. I told him I just drive around dreaming of the places I want to go back to or try for the first time, but not in the triple digits, And between that and home and work and the projects and everything else, there's no ambition for that right now and no opportunity. So I will get back to it. I think tomorrow is actually supposed to be like 10 degrees, 12, 13 degrees cooler. So it's coming. But here's a little look at what the engine's looking like. Nothing special, but I don't think I ever showed you this. I have a brother-in-law that lives in Kansas City. And he was nice enough last time he came out to run by LMC and pick me up some fenders, so I didn't have to pay for the shipping cost. They're cheap enough, but the shipping, doubles or triples the price. So I got those for the 86 here. Mine were just completely rotten. So looking forward to going back with that. So I'm deep in the heart of replacing the crankcase ventilation filter on the Cummins in the work truck here, in the service truck, and it'd been way too long since I've done this apparently. I assumed in the filter kit came a new seal, so I just popped that bad boy out of there. Yeah, there wasn't. I should have known. But anyway, this is one of those dumb ones where they make the seal way bigger than the slot it goes into. So you're trying to stuff it all in there. It keeps popping out. You keep chasing your tail all around, you know, ring around the rosy there, and just doesn't go in. I've been working on it for a good, I don't know, 20 minutes doing that. So I got to thinking, maybe a guy can throw this in the freezer and it would fit. I don't know. Never done that before. So I'm going to go try that. Alright, I don't know how successful we're going to be. It's 105 degrees outside. It's 91 in here at the moment. But I had this in the freezer for a couple hours. Brought it over wrapped in a jacket next to a water bottle. But I don't know. We'll indexing mark there. Now see, we got to do this quickly, guys. Here. You gotta fall. You gotta get in there. This isn't working. It seems to me it's no better off. Yeah, right there. Okay. You get in there. Stay. Again. Just do it. Just do it. Okay. I think. Thing is, if you ignore that filter, if you let it get plugged up, there is every chance you'll create pressure inside the crankcase, and then more than the valve cover gasket can handle. And if that happens, you got to replace it, and there is a wiring harness integrated into the valve cover gasket. Ask me how I know all this. And I've used Dorman and I used Mopar replacement valve cover gaskets, and I was never really impressed with either one, that it was doing what I wanted. So that's neat, and because it's still leaked in, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, on that previous truck, that 2010 service truck, I ignored that a little too much, a little too long, and then after that first time and having to replace the rocker or the valve cover gasket, then I tried to do these on a regular basis. Anyway, so now I forget where my third stud went. don't think it was there. So I am going to put this on. I don't think that was an integral part of anything. So that third stud pretty much has to go back there somewhere. But nothing was hooked to it. So I'll put it back. Did you ever wonder at God's sense of justice? Perhaps you questioned his methods when he hardened Pharaoh's heart in the book of Exodus? Or why would God just get Moses signed on to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, and then bam, on the journey over, the Lord was about to kill him? So the question really is, when we consider how big and mighty and loving and patient God is with us, why at times do we see this kind of judgment and justice from him? If we start in Exodus 4:21, the Lord said to Moses, "When you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders I have given you the power to do. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go." Why would God do that? Wouldn't it have been better if God would have softened Pharaoh's heart towards the Israelites? Let's jump ahead to 9:13. This is during the plagues. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning, confront Pharaoh, and say to him, 'This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. Let my people go so that they may worship me. Or this time I will send the full force of my plagues against you and against your officials and your people, so you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth. For by now I could have stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with a plague that would have wiped you off the earth. But I have raised you up for this very purpose, so that I might show you my power and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. You still set yourself against my people and will not let them go. Therefore, at this time tomorrow, I will send the worst hailstorm that has ever fallen on Egypt, from the day it was founded till now. Give an order now to bring your livestock and everything you have in the field to a place of shelter, because the hail will fall on every person and animal that has not been brought in and is still out in the field, and they will die." Wow, hold on here. Not only has God hardened the heart of Pharaoh, we see here God telling Pharaoh that he raised him up for that very purpose, that the Lord's name might be proclaimed in all the earth. So there's a lot going on here, but first of all, we need to keep in mind that the Israelites had been in Egypt for 430 years. From the very beginning of their settlement in Goshen, they were shown favor from God, and he abundantly blessed them there. What caused the Egyptians to press them into slavery was the fact that the Israelites were blessed and fruitful. And this isn't too hard for us these days to imagine this happening. In fact, you can travel the U.S. over and find areas where families and people groups have settled, mine included, and have grown, and eventually it changed the landscape and the dynamics of the area. And every time this occurs, you will likely find that the people who are already there are somewhat resentful of the change. Now, at the time of Exodus, the old covenants and agreements between the two people groups were long gone and forgotten. In the beginning of the arrangement, when Joseph's hillbilly family showed up, Egypt welcomed them, and Egypt and Israel prospered because of it. But with a lot of time and water under the bridge, new rulers, new generations, all of this was forgotten, all except the fact that there is still a difference between the two groups. And so the rest of the story, the Egyptians enslaved God's chosen people. Here's the ironic thing. When you're a person not living for God, you are so often filled with resentment and jealousy of those you see around you who are living for God, especially those who are prospering. The knee-jerk reaction of the ungodly never seems to be to adopt the ways of God's people, but rather it always seems to be crush them, put them down in their place, and enslave them. My point being, God always gives ample opportunity for people to choose to do the right thing.
This is just as true in today's world, today's governments, and for each one of us on a personal basis. But now, wait a minute. It said God raised Pharaoh up for this purpose. Now we're getting into some pretty heavy predestination type stuff here. Does this mean that God uses people like game pieces and decides whether or not they're going to be for him or against him? In my opinion, no. We know God is a loving God and an absolutely good God. If he was to decide for us which way we are to go, then that would fly in the face of so much more scripture that tells us we choose who we live for here on earth and where we go when we die. God is not making that choice for us, and neither did he make it for Pharaoh. Because we are forgetting another important aspect of God. He is timeless. He is the beginning and the end. He knew us before we were knitted together in our mother's wombs, right? And he knows our heart. In other words, God knew from the very beginning each and every person that has been and will be here on earth. And he knew from the beginning who would choose to give him their heart and who wouldn't. God gives us that choice. And furthermore, we believers choose whether or not we do the things that God calls us to do. Hopefully you choose to do them. But what of those who choose the other way? Is it right or wrong for God to use the ungodly to achieve his plans? As far as I'm concerned, I'm all for it. Either way, he will accomplish what he desires here on earth. He used Pharaoh then, and it's pretty plain that he is doing the same thing here on earth today. Another thing we need to consider is the fact that Israel had to be oppressed. Wait, what? Yeah, think about it. 430 years previously, Joseph's entire family came to Egypt and settled in Goshen because of a famine. Since then, they became incredibly numerous and prosperous. In fact, Scripture says that even during the time of their enslavement, they prospered even more, which is what caused the Egyptians to fear them more and more. God always desires freedom for his people, and he had a plan for them in a land he had prepared for them. In fact, I just read elsewhere where it says he searched the world over to find the perfect place for his people. How else would God get them back to the land that he had waiting for them? He had to make life in Egypt unbearable, right? God had to condition and prepare their hearts to want to move towards the place he had prepared for them. Can't you just see God trying to get his people out of there? Pharaoh decides, these people have too much time on their hands, just building bricks with the provided materials. Now they're going to have to meet their quota and go harvest the straw for bricks as well. We can take these things as a sign for what God is doing. He hardens the hearts of those who are corrupt and have sold themselves out to evil. And he prepares the hearts of his people so that it will be their desire to leave their place of relative comfort and familiarity because he has something far better waiting on the other side. Now, Exodus 4:24, at a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. But Zipporah took a flint knife, which was Moses' wife, took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin, ouch, and touched Moses' feet with it. Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me, she says. So the Lord let him alone. In parentheses, at that time she said bridegroom of blood, referring to circumcision. Okay, so God had just had to talk this 80-year-old guy into being a leader for the people. He performed signs for him like the burning bush, turning the staff into a snake. He humored him regarding Moses' speech problems and shyness and agreed to let Aaron be a mouthpiece for him. God was patient, got Moses on board to do this, and then he's angry and is going to kill him. What's going on? Moses was entering into his destiny of confronting evil and was anointed to lead God's people. But even he had neglected the covenant made between God and Abraham. Genesis 4, 9 through 14, God makes a covenant with Abraham that circumcision will serve as a sign. To serve as a sign must be done to every male, or else that male would be cut off from the covenant. Moses, as an infant, would have been circumcised, so he's okay. But perhaps considering the life that he experienced, he neglected to pass it on to his son. He grew up in the palace with Egyptians, so the Jews probably resented him. He came to the aid of a Jew and ends up killing an Egyptian and has to flee for his life. So he ends up in the wilderness living with the Midianites, tending sheep, marries a Midianite woman. So it's very little wonder that he doesn't feel too connected with God, to God with a covenant, right? It's also quite probable that Moses at this point is at the point of death and can't perform the circumcision himself. So his wife has to do it. Then she touches Moses' feet with it, so that perhaps he will be healed as well. If you reread that Exodus 4:24 through 26, it kind of reads like Moses himself has been struck with an illness and is about to die. 26, so the Lord let him alone. It kind of reads like Moses was under the influence of something. He couldn't do it, so his wife did it, touched his feet with the foreskin, and then Moses was healed as well. Now, we live in the fulfillment of the law, which was from Jesus Christ. So today we don't need to be circumcised. And you can read all about the early church's challenges dealing with that in the hearts of the Jews in the New Testament. But the point I want to make here is perhaps an obvious one, but when God desires to lead his people to freedom, he must have obedience, especially in the leaders that he raises up to do it. But I think that should apply to everyone, not just leadership. If you haven't picked up on it yet, to me, these passages are absolutely timely for today's world. In case you haven't been paying too much attention to what God is saying the last few years, so many in leadership are talking about shaking and revival and harvest. So much of the church here in the U.S. has been enslaved by corruption and evil desires. So much so that even the church now calls evil good and good evil. The church has been too comfortable with where it has been for too long. And now, the last few years especially, God has been preparing the hearts of his people for a move. It's very plain to see that the hearts of the ungodly have hardened. Companies and businesses, one after the other, go woke and go broke, yet they still keep doing it. Their hearts are hardened. A shaking to the U.S. is coming. I'm not a prophet, but I listen to what God is saying through so many others. We need to prepare our hearts for what God is about to do. We need to keep our eyes and ears open to what God is saying and doing. And above all, just like when the Israelites were trapped up against the Red Sea, do not fear, and it didn't print the rest of... do not fear. God is with us. We will see his deliverance today. Basically is where I was going. I hope that made sense to you guys. I'm pretty sure you understand. You have your ears turned on to what's going on. And I would really encourage you, if you are still watching mainstream news, what you doing, guy? Stop it. You know? There are other ways to get news, and you're probably better off anyway. Before I go, hey, first of all, this has just kind of been a lot of talk in this one. I haven't really shown you a whole lot. I just don't have a whole lot to show you. Not a whole lot going on around here. The heat, the work, all of that stuff. So sorry if it wasn't too terribly interesting, but before I do go, without his permission, I just want to mention, I hope it's okay, I'm only going to say your first name, but keep Kevin in your prayers. He's dealing with some medical stuff. He's been around here since the very beginning. So guys, just pray for healing for Kevin, and I would also ask it for my own dad. My dad has been, for almost as long as I can remember, been dealing with esophagus problems and stomach problems, and it's just getting worse again. And I just say over both these guys, the scripture says that by Jesus' stripes we are healed, that he took up our infirmities and bore our diseases, so these guys may be healed as well. And I just speak that over them in the name of Jesus. Please do the same. Anything else? If you guys are dealing with something and want me to mention it with this small community of believers here, absolutely email it to me and we will do that. And you can just tell me what else is going on in your life. But other than that, I'm sure this is long enough, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining me. God bless you guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Say, wait a minute. Look at this.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
You know, I don't feel safe riding around on a tire like that.
I don't blame you. That could get you in a lot of trouble.
Maybe I'd better change it.
I would if I were you.